The police commissioner calls for changes to government's electronic monitoring program. She did what? A woman arrested after trying to snatch the mace in Parliament. Government to borrow $200 million plus. Leslie Miller's abuse remarks prompt a protest in Rawson Square. We've got those stories and a whole lot more tonight. I'm Fawny Toot, and NB12 starts now. Topping news tonight, the Commissioner of Police is calling on government to be more selective about which suspects are being electronically monitored. This after two men wearing ankle bracelets reportedly attempted to tamper with those devices using foil paper on Monday. Police believe the two monitored suspects and another man were preparing to rob a bank. Greenslade told NB12 today, while he is satisfied with the system, people like that should be behind bars, not on our streets wearing ankle bracelets.
While we don't wish to alarm the public, it's very depressing, very disconcerting to arrest a man in the parking lot of that shopping center who should really not be on the streets.
NB12 was the only station on the scene Monday when police officers arrested three men sitting in the Marathon Mall parking lot in a blue Ford SUV with two different sets of license plates. Commissioner Greenslade says authorities may have foiled a bank robbery that day.
We are satisfied that there's a very high probability that something could have gone wrong had we not made an intervention.
But he's even more troubled by the suspects' attempts to conceal their anklet bracelets with foil paper to prevent authorities from pinpointing their location. Greenslade says while he has no issues with the electronic monitoring program itself, some suspects are just too dangerous to be on our streets.
I really believe that we should be a bit more selective, and I speak about the law enforcement side, even before we get into court arena, in determining who those people are that are selected for monitoring of that kind. There are some people that are much too dangerous to be put back into the community because what happens essentially is they either reoffend by murdering people or they themselves are killed.
The police chief says this scenario plays out on our streets very often and is inflating this country's crime statistics. National Security Minister Dr. Bernard Nottage said recently 460 people are being electronically monitored. Greenslade says many of them were charged with murder, armed robbery, or rape. He says he's made his concerns about who should be monitored known to government officials.
I don't even hesitate to tell you that. I have the greatest measure of respect for the systems, that is, systems and processes across criminal justice. However, we cannot ignore the fact that some people have a propensity to commit serious crimes. They've demonstrated that propensity over and repeatedly, and we can't ignore that and simply allow them to run about in these communities. They're going to continue to hurt people, and they're going to continue to get themselves into major problems.
A 46-year-old woman from Misty Gardens had to be restrained by House Speaker Dr. Kendall Major and was dragged out of the House of Assembly this morning after she attempted to snatch the mace out of the mace bearer's hand. Janice Curtis was sitting in the visitors' gallery around 11 a.m. when the morning session began. Members of Parliament and those in the gallery watched in shock as she jumped up and tried to take the mace from Assistant Clerk David Forbes as he and the House Speaker entered the lower chamber.
Well, the mace bearer is right in front of me, and when she snatched at the mace, he pulled back and she didn't grab it, and I sensed it, and I essentially helped him, and next thing I know, I found myself holding her until the officer grabbed her from me. She was immediately restrained by the Sergeant-at-Arms and Officer Ferguson, and she was unable to get the mace, and she was then ushered out and placed in custody at Central Police Station.
Curtis reportedly told officials God told her to take the mace. Major says even before the incident happened, the Sergeant-at-Arms monitored Curtis because she was acting suspiciously. He says she took off her shoes and wiped her bare feet on the carpet. Curtis has now been banned from the House of Assembly for 1 year, will undergo a psychiatric evaluation, and faces jail time or a fine.
Presently, by law, $600 and 6 months in jail, and/or 6 months in jail would be the overall. We're going to look at it. We are suspicious that there may be a psychiatric consideration, and so we're going to order psychiatric evaluation. I will speak to her this afternoon, and then we'll make a judgment.
The House Speaker said last year he felt unsafe and that MPs were sitting ducks after Deputy Prime Minister Philip Davis was robbed at his home last summer. However, he said today he is satisfied that officers were fully prepared and he feels safe. That being said, he says they will continue to look at security. When members of Parliament arrived at the House of Assembly this morning, they were greeted by more than 20 protesters who were outraged by Tall Pines MP Leslie Miller's abuse remarks.
Country leaders, act now. Violence against women, not funny. Country leaders, act now. Violence against women, not funny.
Local recording artist Ternille Burrows demanded that Prime Minister Perry Christie condemn Miller's joke about beating an ex-girlfriend until his hand hurt. Miller has since apologized and insisted his comments were made in jest, but Burrows says violence against women is no laughing matter.
We're here to have the government become accountable for the comments that were made on February 20th that inferred that violence against women should be laughed at. And if anybody should not laugh about violence, it's the leaders of our country, our elected officials, our senators, the ones that direct us, especially in the place where our laws are made, the House of Parliament.
These people are here to lead. They do not represent my views as a Bahamian. That does not represent my view. It wasn't funny when I was being abused. It wasn't funny when children are being abused. It's not funny when the hospitals are filled. 45% of the murders because women are having their faces turned over, and men too.
Miller made a $1,000 donation to the Crisis Center, which did not accept his check. Avant-garde singer Jane Doe supported that move, saying $1,000 won't cut it.
I think that is a drop in the bucket. Sure, thank you for apologizing, but on the grand scale of things, what effect does that really have, you know? I believe that as a government, there should be laws in place. There should be curriculums in school where we could teach our children from this high up. Violence is something that we should not tolerate.
Protesters represented Hollaback Bahamas, Bahamas Against Sexual Violence and Child Abuse, as well as Citizens for a Better Bahamas. However, there weren't just women condemning Miller's comments.
We must be conscious of how we deal with each other. And as a male, I feel that the women in this country, the playing field is definitely tilted toward man. And it shouldn't be that way.
Burrows says over 300 people have signed an online petition at tinyurl.com/violenceisnotfunny. Meantime, Miller declined comment on today's protest. The government today tabled legislation to borrow more than $200 million to go towards the purchase of several new Defense Force boats and necessary upgrades. At a press conference last night, officials explained the importance of carrying out the pricey purchase. Dana Smith reports.
According to the government, this substantial borrowing and the resulting procurement will significantly enhance the ability of the Defense Force to combat drug, human, and firearm trafficking, as well as poaching and illegal migration.
A resolution will be tabled in Parliament by the Minister of Finance to allow the government to enter into a loan agreement with Deutsche Bank to borrow approximately $232 million to support the purchase of the vessels and the ancillary civil works for the Defense Force.
Being purchased by the government are 4 138-foot patrol vessels, 4 98-foot patrol vessels, 9 rigid inflatable boats, and 1 183-foot roll-on, roll-off landing craft. 2 vessels already owned by the Defense Force and both 198 feet in length will be upgraded to extend the ship's operational life cycles. The $223 million sum will also include port infrastructural work at Coral Harbor in New Providence, Ragged Island's Gun Point, and Great Inagua's Matthewtown. Prime Minister Perry Christie said the acquisition of these new boats and civil work will aid the Defense Force in securing the nation's borders against drug and weapon smuggling, poaching, and illegal migration.
We have human illegal
migration as a major challenge to our country, the consequence of which is enormous in terms of the implications to the future well-being of our country. Therefore, there must be no compromise on the capacity of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas to put itself in a position, notwithstanding help from its allies, the United States of America, to begin with, in being able to help us cover those waters.
Christie also said this new agreement will aid the country in combating human smuggling, something he said the Bahamas has come under scrutiny for in the past.
And whether we like it or not, the country has been questioned and positioned in a negative light, even though when it comes to the resources, we regarded those initial movements as unfair, but we have responded positively. We have committed not only current resources, but future resources to equip the Royal Bahamas Defense Force to assist us in interdicting and minimizing the extent to which smuggling of human beings take place in our waters.
Nottage said the purchase of these new boats and the scheduled works at the bases are all a part of fulfilling the government's election campaign promise to secure the nation's borders, as was laid out in the PLP's Charter for Governance. He also said this agreement could lead to a doubling of the force's budget.
The Defense Force Acquisition Program, known as the Sandy Bottom Project, represents a major investment by the government and would dramatically alter the force's culture, operations, and finances. The projected direct capital expense for purchasing the vessels represents 1.3% of the country's GDP, and this could likely lead to a doubling of the force's budget within 5 years.
Nottage also took note of the force's recruitment program, which is projected to increase the force by 800 personnel over the next 5 years. The government signed the vessel acquisition agreement with Holland-based company Damon Shipyards for the building and delivery of the new vessels. Damon Shipyards has teamed up with international contracting company Van Oord to execute the civil works component. The first boat will arrive on June 13th and will be named after former Governor General Arthur Dion Hanna. The remainder of the boats are expected to arrive over the next few years, with the last to be delivered by August 2016. Reporting for NB12, I'm Dana Smith.